the first question is, during my meditation, I always wonder, where is this mind that is thinking? Once the brain is dead, what is that is passed on to our next life? How our merits and paramitas transfer from one life to another?
Looks like you're an investor. Somebody who's already planning for next life. Why not work just on this life? Get this life sorted first. As you can see, when you meditate, your mind will constantly jump to the next object. So it's based partly, when you're meditating, say your eyes are closed and you're in a quiet place, where a lot of it is based on memory, so past memories popping up, feelings in the body, something triggers the next thought and your mind grabs hold of that. We say object, we call it an object, an aramana. Could be pleasant, could be unpleasant. But if our mindfulness slips, then instead of putting the mind where we want it to be, say on the breath, the mind goes off where it wants to be according to the power of our karmic conditioning, greed, anger, and delusion. So it might jump on the wagon of some proliferation about something pleasant, sensual experience, memory, or fantasy about the future. Or it may be caught into negativity, something that happened that we didn't like, and we keep thinking about that. It will find an object, some very mundane, ordinary, some more extreme. But that's the mind that is not well trained. And the mindfulness slips and we just pick up the next object. So sometimes we say it's almost like a mini birth and death. One moment you're here alive with the breath, aware. The next moment you've got lost in this fantasy of imagination, some mood. And for a while you're lost, aren't you? It's like you've died or you've been reborn into that place of anger, sadness, confusion, something or other. And then a bit later, you regain mindfulness. You remember, oh, I should be with the breath, because the idea is not to forget the breath, but you do. But when you remember it again, it's like you're born back with the breath now. So it's like another little birth back in this place. And the breath is fairly peaceful, and you're often generating more relaxed awareness, some joy, some happiness. So, you're back with that good feeling, the relaxed awareness, you've been born there, and then later on you've lost it again, you're reborn into your memory of some unpleasant thing or something you're desiring. So in one meditation, you'll see birth and death occurring all the time. So that can give you an insight to what may happen at the end of your life, or what happened previously as well. How did you end up where you are now? And this is the product of your previous attachments to mental states, greed, anger, delusion in the past have brought you to this birth. And if you haven't finished that off this life, you haven't cut it off at the stump, then it's going to lead into the next life. So this is what keeps us being born and dying, is greed, anger, and delusion, mental proliferation based on greed, anger, and delusion. And you're seeing that in real time when you meditate. You're seeing birth and death taking place. But you also have a chance to interrupt that process and cut through it with mindfulness. So what did the Buddha say? When you're heedful, mindful, you're with the deathless. When your mindfulness is gone, you're lost in the next round of mental proliferation, then it's as if you're dead already. So that's where you can really learn about karma, the kind of karma you're making, the intentions and the mental states you're clinging on to, good and bad. And hopefully you can see that the Buddhist path is bringing you to a conclusion. It's actually bringing you to the end of this process of mental proliferation. So the Arahant, the enlightened one, is not mentally proliferating. They have full control of their mind. Their mind is tamed, it's trained. And they're happy because of it, because they don't get caught out by greed, anger, and delusion. That's why they're happy. So we say, the well-trained mind brings happiness.
Sadhu Lumpur. The next question. Dear Lumpur, please can you talk about camping out in the forest in the hot season and what the benefits are of this practice?
Well, it's not always easy camping, because you'll go out and, as if you've done it before or you've heard about anyone else who's done it, there's always obstacles. You know, nature is not always easy, especially if you're used to living in an modern urban environment. When you go out into nature, you know, there's animals and insects, there's weather, there's temperature, there's hard floors, there's going without all kinds of comforts and conveniences, electricity and all the gadgets and things. So that's one thing when you go camping, whether you're a monk or a lay person, you notice the first thing is, you know, what do I take with me? And there may be a tendency to want to take as much comfort along with you as possible. Comfortable bed, things to protect you from insects and weather, things to distract you when you're bored, so like entertainments. And then, you know, nowadays, if you've got a mobile phone and you still get a signal and you've got a charger of some sort, battery or solar charger, well, you can really spend a lot of time doing exactly what you do at home if you want. And then you maybe don't get the full benefit. So the idea of camping is to get a bit closer to nature, more simple, shed a little bit of your attachment and work with that. So be patient and be prepared for some frustrations. You know, your mind will throw up the frustrations of letting go of certain comforts, but that can be good for us if you're doing it as a mindfulness practice, simplifying things, learning to go without, do without, simplify your life. That can be very good for us because it makes us more independent of so many attachments. And in the long run, that makes us happier. You know, if you can get by without your mobile phone, you can get by without your big bed, you can get by without all the foods that you like, and you just have very simple food maybe. All these things that come with the simplicity of camping or being out in the forest help us to be more independent. And as a Dhamma practice, it pushes us back to rely more on Dhamma rather than the comforts of home. And so you're relying on your meditation, your mindfulness practice, your faith in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, your sila, your insight into impermanent suffering and not self. That becomes your refuge rather than, you know, your fridge or your phone or your comforts here, comforts there. So this is why we do those practices. And you also face new challenges that you haven't faced before. So the challenge of wild animals, if there are any around. You know, even in Australia, you get wild dogs, snakes, insects, spiders, depending on where you're camping. And in other parts of the world, there'll be their own challenges of wild animals, wild weather conditions. So here we had our retreat last week, and first day there's already a storm blowing people's tents out and bringing rain into their tents. So there's weather conditions to deal with, there's loneliness to deal with if you're on your own or just with maybe one or two other people, but in a lonely place. Some parts of the world there's disease issues like, you know, water, you have to find clean water. If you're in Asia, maybe there's insect-borne disease, like from mosquitoes, you can get malaria, dengue fever. There's all these kind of challenges which will bring up fear, worry, restlessness of mind, and then desire for comfort. All of that you can make as a cause for, you know, insight by using them as food for insight as you practice. It's not necessarily easy, but you do as much as you can. You go at your own pace, or some people go out for long periods, some people for short periods. But if you use it as a learning experience, it can be very good. So I'd recommend it for lay people, get out of the city for a while, go and camp. That can be a very refreshing and informative, insightful experience, especially if you meditate every day. You may not meditate all day, but at least do some meditation, do some mindfulness practice as you're camping. As monks, we go out camping and you have to let go of all this, even the comfort and convenience of the monastery. Maybe you go somewhere and you don't know where your next meal will come from. So you have all this uncertainty, which is quite good for our practice. You never know what you'll meet coming around the next corner. Maybe a snake will slither up near you, or a bear, or a wild dog, or a tiger, or whatever. There's all these unexpected things you can deal with in those situations, and that's quite useful. So I'd recommend it as a practice. Try it and see what it brings up.
Sadhu, Lumpur. Next question. Dear Ajahn, working as a teacher for 13 years, I notice I am getting more fluent in scolding students off. However, Ajahn has been a teacher for more than 30 years and you are still very patient and kind to your students. I wonder how I can develop more patience towards life.
Meditate. So balance your teaching with a bit of meditation, mindfulness practice. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying I have all the answers, because teaching, I don't know what level of students you have, whether they're very young, medium, or older, high school, kindergarten, or even university. But, it's a very challenging job. Hopefully it's a rewarding job as well, but you have to be very patient, and you'll get a lot of patience from practicing meditation and being mindful so that you're more careful of your speech. Because as you meditate more and practice mindfulness, well, the things you say and do during your day will come up during your meditation. And you may reflect back on mistakes made when you speak too hastily, or you say something that's not the best. It'll come up. Your mind has a natural filter system. So as you practice mindfulness, you become aware of where you go wrong, the mistakes you make. You may also become creative and see better ways to do the job, to teach, to how to get through to certain kids, or to deal with certain difficult situations. You may actually become creative and get some wisdom and insight from your meditation. And with the patience and the compassion you get, well, that will certainly help you in the classroom, because you'll need that dealing with other people, especially young people who maybe are not so restrained, not so mature. Then it will maybe help you to deal with that. Anything you can pass on in terms of helping them to be more mindful, more calm, is good. So, I know each situation is different, but if you can get them to meditate, that would be ideal. If you can push that in your school or your classroom. Because all that I've heard is that if you're getting students to do any kind of meditation, and I know they won't all do it and they won't all be trying, but anything you can do generally will have a good effect, I think, on them. And meditative activities for kids, for students, to do with anything, taking them out on outings, walks in the forest or whatever. There's all kinds of things you can do that which may help. But as a teacher, you have to teach yourself as you teach others. That's one thing I've learned, and you can do this, but you can't forget your duty to teach yourself at the same time, because this is how the Buddha taught kindness and compassion, is that you have to remember you're part of the situation as much as the person you're being compassionate to or sharing information with. You also have to be compassionate to yourself in that situation. So you have to know your limits, when you're getting burnt out, tired, when you need a rest, what you can achieve, what you can't achieve. You have to reflect on that as well, use wisdom as well. So keep teaching yourself as you teach others. And that's how my teacher Ajahn Chah taught monks. He said, you're not going out there to tell them as if you know everything and you're just telling other people. You're teaching yourself as you do that. Because they'll be bringing stuff back to you, as you know, if you're a teacher, they'll test you and they'll give you feedback and push it back on you and criticize you and be rude to you and ignore you and all that. You'll have to deal with that in your own mind as you're teaching. So some monks get enlightened teaching. In the time of the Buddha, there was one monk, he got enlightened teaching others. So it can happen as you reflect on what you're doing. You may see the Dhamma of, the ego, the sense of self comes up as you're teaching others. Maybe they're being rowdy and they don't listen and you become frustrated, but then you let go of your frustration, you let go of your ego in that situation. You could maybe become enlightened as you teach.
Sadhu, Lumpur. Next question. May I know how can we be calm to our parents who are facing hearing loss?
Oh, well, just be kind to them, yeah. Just become mindful that they can't hear you. Is that what it was? Hearing loss? Deaf. Yeah. Be mindful that they're deaf. Just keep that forefront in the mind. Mindfulness of something means not forgetting. So don't forget they're deaf. And then you have to look up for ways to communicate skillfully. I guess the ideal is learn the language that the deaf use. I forget what it's called, but learning that language, sign language, making allowance for the fact that they're deaf. So don't, keep reminding yourself when you're telling them something and they're not going to hear it, you have to go back to yourself, don't you? You go back to your own frustration and say, oh, it's not their fault, they're deaf, but it's my fault or my problem because I'm trying to communicate using sound and they can't hear. So you have to become aware how that will be triggering your own frustration, and that's where you have to practice as well. But just find skillful ways to allow for their deafness, and I don't know what way you use. It depends on your family, your situation, but the written word, visual image, if it's sign language and all of that. But keep the love and the compassion going and just find new ways to display it. My dad went more or less deaf, but not completely, but greatly deaf at the end of his life. And we just joked and he said, I've heard it all already anyway. So I said, yep, that's a good way to think about it. Then you're not missing anything, because I'm sure if someone goes deaf, they may be missing a lot of stuff from the past. They can't listen to their things. They can't communicate so easily. So they're adjusting. So be compassionate to them on that front. But then, joke about it. Oh, yeah, you've heard it all before. Doesn't matter. And just see what you can do to support them in their situation. And the same with any disability, whether it's mobility disability or blindness, anything, you just try to adjust yourself as they're going through their problem. You're trying to adjust, and then don't make a problem out of it for yourself or for them, and encourage them not to make a problem out of it, but just to adjust and accept the new reality.
Lumpur, I think what she's asking is that her parents are afraid of the hearing loss, and then asking about how to calm the parents who are facing hearing loss.
Well, as I said, adjust to the new reality. If they still can hear but are afraid of losing, just have to accept everything is impermanent. This body, as it ages, the eyes go, the ears go, mobility goes. Accepting that change, but the mind that can accept change and see change doesn't have to suffer with it. It just knows it. To know the body and the changing nature of the body, including hearing. And so if, obviously you get medical help from hearing specialists and you try your best to keep the hearing going while you can. If it really goes, then you have to adjust to that, but see it just as an adjustment to the new reality of the aging body rather than a loss of personality, or it doesn't make you a lesser person just because you can't hear or because you're afraid that you can't hear. Just accept, the body is impermanent and you focus on what you have. So you may still have eyes that work and certain things you can do and you can think. You can still focus on the Dhamma. You can still do breathing meditation. So as you have fears come up of losing parts of your health, or focus on the bits of your good health you still have. Appreciate that with gratitude, with the positive side of things. Focus on that, and then the more negative side, when you're losing things, just accept that. Yeah, things are impermanent. Say thank you to your ears. If you're losing your ears and the ability to hear, well, say thank you for all those years that you gave me hearing and that I had hearing. That was my good karma. So appreciate the hearing that you did have. Now it's a time where you may hear less. Okay, just accept it and read and use your eyes more perhaps, and just adjust to the new reality. I know it's easy to say, but that's what we have to do. And we all have to face aging in one way or another. Nobody escapes. So we all have to face this.
Sadhu. Lumpo. Next question. How can I understand letting go correctly? Is it not trying, giving up, surrendering, and not clinging, etc.? It can mean differently in different contexts. Letting go of a position of letting go of suffering can lead to different results. How can I let go wisely? Can you share how one can transcend from negative self-views to non-self-views?
Well, it's a very good point, and it's part of our practice, isn't it? Learning how to let go with wisdom, or let go skillfully. The guideline is your aim is to free your mind from suffering of all kinds. And here I mean mental suffering, stress, that is we create through our own ignorance. Physical suffering of the body, as we've just been describing, sometimes we get hearing loss, eye loss, injuries, illnesses. Well, you go to a doctor and you do the best you can with that, but how much you can do, you may have to put up with a certain amount of pain, suffering from the body. But mental suffering is something we can address and do something about. And that's what the Buddha was really working on primarily. But of course, letting go is something you learn. It's a skill. And in the beginning, you're not letting go of everything. Don't let go of the Buddha. Don't let go of the Dhamma. Don't let go of the Sangha. Don't let go of your precepts. Don't let go of mindfulness. If you're meditating, don't let go of your mindfulness objects, such as the breath. There's a time when you don't want to let go, and there's certain things you don't want to let go of. You cling on, but you cling on skillfully because you're using them as part of the practice, as a tool, as a way to help you to get to the end of suffering. So what I was describing earlier in the talk today is, what you're really letting go of is greed, anger, and delusion conditioned by ignorance and attachment. That's what you're letting go of. And to start with, you have to cling on. So we have different ways of describing this. We say you're climbing a ladder. In order to get to the higher rungs of the ladder, you need to step on the lower rungs first. So you as if hold on to the lower rung to get to the next rung up. Eventually you can let go of the lower rungs, and then you go to the higher rung of the ladder to get up the ladder. And practice is a bit like that. In the beginning, you do cling on or hold on to things, but you hold on to the good things, the useful things first. It's the negative things, the obvious causes of suffering in your mind, in your thinking, the wrong views, the attitudes, the negative thoughts. That's where you practice a lot of letting go in the beginning. Ultimately, the sense of self can become subtler and subtler. So even on the highest levels of the practice, people who've attained jhana and samadhi and would seem very advanced. They're still letting go, but on a very subtle level, the subtlest conceits and self that forms around spiritual attainment, say. But the basic level and the beginning level is letting go of a lot of core stuff. So when you keep precepts, say, you're letting go of the desire to kill, to steal, to get drunk, to cheat on your partner or cheat on someone else's with someone else's partner, to tell lies. You know, that's fairly coarse, more obvious stuff, and you're letting go of the intentions to do those actions. So that, I mean, it's still hard work, but that is a more obvious area where you're letting go of certain negative tendencies of mind, speech, action. And obviously you're holding on to the good bit. So if you let go of the desire to kill or hurt physically, what's left that you're holding on to is kindness and compassion. And over time, you're learning how to skillfully hold on even to the positive qualities of mind, the mindfulness, the compassion, the wisdom. You don't hold on so tightly that you form a new kind of self or ego out of those. You know, I am really good, I'm a really good person, and so on. So whether it's the practice of generosity, morality, mindfulness, meditation, insight meditation, the results of that, you're also learning not to let go, not to hold on to, but to let go of any clinging to those. But that's a more subtle thing that comes through practice. But the flavor of the practice is letting go. And you're learning that as you go, how to do it skillfully. And you make mistakes. You have to accept that. So sometimes you do let go too much, too quickly, you know, but it's not, when you're doing that, it's obviously not coming from wisdom. It's coming often from exasperation. So how many times have we meditated and we've been practicing doing breathing meditation, and then we say, oh, I can't be with my breath. I give up. I hate meditation. I'm giving up. You might call that letting go, but without wisdom. And you let go of all meditation for a while. Too far. You go too far. Or you get tired helping people, helping someone, practicing some kindness and generosity, and you become burnt out. And you say, I give up. I can't do it anymore. I'm letting go. I'm not going to do anything more. And for a while, you maybe give up. But then maybe later on, you realize, I still can do a bit more. There's still something good I can do here. So you pick up again. So letting go is a bit like that. In the beginning, we're not skilled at it yet. Sometimes we cling on too tightly, sometimes too loosely. We give up, we try. You have to accept that. There'll be learnings, like anything in life, you're learning how to do it skillfully. So you try too hard, too little, until you get it just right. So my teacher, Ajahn Chah, used this term, podi, which means just right. And that comes through experience, you know, how to hold on in a way that's just right, not too tight, not too loose, how to use the tools of the Dhamma practice, the skills that you're learning just right, so they help to free you from suffering, from attachment. And of course, that's a skill. It will take a bit of time, a bit of learning, but keep going and you'll get better at it. What was the last part there? Lumpur, what was it?
Can you share how can one transcend from negative self-view to non-self views?
Well, recognize what's going on. Recognize negative self-view when it comes up. Self-criticism. Sometimes it comes out in our speech. You keep telling other people how bad you are. Most other people don't want to hear that. Even if you are bad and make mistakes and you've got weaknesses, other people would rather hear about the good stuff from you. So get in the good habit of, I don't mean boasting or claiming, making false claims, but try not to always talk about the negative stuff about you. You know, occasionally you bring up your mistake, your weakness, sometimes. But most of the time, talk about more positive stuff in other people as well. Don't keep focusing on their mistakes and their bad side, and don't keep focusing on your bad side. Look more for the positives and build on them. Because if you're going to develop them, you've got to focus on them, you know, emphasize them in your thinking, in your speech. So speech is a good starting point. And then come back particularly in meditation and mindfulness, to look where you're holding on to negative perceptions about yourself, because it's just a mistaken or a wrong thinking that we do, and we focus on the faults so easily. One thing that conditions that is, you have ideals of perfection. I should be perfect. I should have no greed, no anger. I should be a perfect person in this world. And our culture now is pushing that all the time. I should be rich, famous, good looking. I should be fulfilled, a fulfilled human being. And, wherever you look, that kind of message is coming your way. So, of course, you'll start thinking that, talking to people, reading stuff, hearing stuff. But be careful and then watch what it does to your mind. Another way of looking at it is say, I've actually started life from a very good place because I'm a human being. And already that, in the Buddhist sense, that's great, good karma, great good fortune. You're a human, and humans have potential for everything. We can learn, we can improve. So, okay, we make mistakes, we do things wrong, things go badly, sometimes other people treat us badly, but we can change, we can learn, we can grow, we can move on, we can improve, because we have that potential. So a human being has the potential for enlightenment. What more could you ask for? But of course, you have to bring that out through your actions. So ask yourself, if I keep putting myself down, I keep holding on to these negative perceptions, what does it do to me? It makes me miserable, depressed, disappointed. You have to sit down and talk that through with yourself, observe what you're doing, and then stop, change. Sometimes we can stop very quickly, sometimes it takes a bit of effort. And one very good way to achieve that is associate with some wise, compassionate people, what we call Kalyana Mitta. If you have Kalyana Mitta who can be good examples, give some positive inputs, encourage you, that's good. So you get some positive inputs from others first, then you learn to do it for yourself. So Ajahn Chah always used to say, first you might teach others or talk to others, get some inputs from others, then you've got to learn to do it for yourself. Teach yourself. You've got to be your own Kalyana Mitta for yourself. So we've got to learn how to do that. That's what practice is. You're learning to let go of the negative perceptions and thoughts, bring up things that are more useful, more constructive, more positive. And that takes time and effort. So keep practicing. Don't give up.
Sadhu, Lumpur. The next question. Is our mind and body a separate entity or one?
Well, they're certainly linked. The Buddha talked about human being as what we call 5 khandhas. He was helping us to reflect on ourselves. So 5 khandhas, the first one is rupa khandha, physical form. The other 4 are mental, so they're parts of the mind or the activities of the mind. There's feeling, pleasure, pain, and neutral. Perception, how we remember things and memory. Mental formations, the intentions, the choices, the decisions we make, what we're going to do, the plans, the actions that come from the mind. And then sense consciousness, how we receive information, data through our senses all the time, the 6 senses, including the mind. So this is a human being. So they're all linked. So, if you don't have eyes, you can't see. And the eyes are a physical part of the body. But the seeing is, we call it seeing consciousness. It's the mind at work through the eyes. And that brings us sights, which we interpret with perception. That leads on often to mental formations. I like this, I want this, I don't like that, I want to get rid of that. So all these 5 khandhas work together at the same time. So that's the delusion that it's all one solid thing. But as you meditate, especially if you develop states of samadhi, calm, refined awareness of mindfulness, you start to experience more of a separation between the quality of the knower, which is just this natural quality of knowing experience, but now well trained through samadhi practice, and then the things that are known. So you can know the body. So the mind that knows the body can see, oh, mind and body are two different things. Feelings of mind, perceptions of mind, mental formations, all can be known. So the mind can know itself. So there's a part of the mind that we can train in that's just pure knowing, or the quality of knowing. And then the things that are known. So it's always able, the more you do that, the more you can separate things out. And this sense of a solid human being does separate. And then you understand better what death is. Death is the death of the physical body, but mind, which is still, as long as it's still conditioned by karma, will go on to another life. So then it makes more sense of many of the aspects of the Buddhist teachings once you experience a bit of a separation between mind and body. And to do that, you need to meditate. So that's a brief overview. We're kind of short of time maybe, so I can't go into too much of it, but that's a sort of summary of it.
Sadhu, Lumpur. Next question. If one who is deaf is facing death, where one cannot hear the Dhamma or chanting or talk, how can one deal with death?
Well, the one who is writing this question is obviously not dead yet. So do your practice now before you reach that state. Yeah, death is the closing down of all the bodily organs. So sometimes you die when you're unconscious or asleep or in a coma or just very fuzzy-headed because the illness is so powerful that you can no longer really function very well and you're not very conscious. So be ready for it now by practicing mindfulness now, keeping the precepts now, practicing generosity now, train yourself now, and then you don't have to worry too much about what happens when you die because you've trained yourself well, developed a lot of good karma, your mind is free from suffering. Then death is just an affair of the body stopping working, whether you're conscious or not, doesn't matter so much. The important thing is, what are you doing with your consciousness today, now? Are you spending all your time caught up in greed, anger, and delusion now? Because if you are now, then of course it's going to come up later on as well, maybe worse. So that's why we have to practice right here, right now, today, and keep doing that. And that's the best preparation for later on if you're going to die, whether it's tomorrow or in 50 years from now. We don't know when we're going to die. But you have to prepare for it now through the practice.
Sadhu, Lumpur. Next question. When doing meditation in the forest, if I worry if there are spirits that would disturb me, what chant should I use?
The one that makes you feel calm, mindful, develops faith in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, brings all the good qualities. So it could be recollecting the Buddha, Iti Piso Bhagava Arahant, could be Karaniya Metta Sutta, the Metta Sutta, could be Asevana Chabalanang, the Mangala Sutta. It could be a simple gatha or reflection, like, I am of the nature to die, I have not gone beyond dying. Anything that works for you to bring up mindfulness, some insight, faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, more wholesome states of mind. It could be just one word, Buddha. So, many monks I know, and myself included, met a ghost in the forest. Ghost seems kind of unpleasant, kind of presence. You go recite Buddha and nothing happens. Buddha is a very powerful meditation object, recollecting the Buddha. Most ghosts, majority of ghosts, just wither away or go away in the face of Buddha. But we're not aiming to, exercise or hurt or get rid of ghosts. If there are such things, you say spirits, that could be good spirits, devas or ghosts. As Buddhists, we practice loving kindness, compassion, mindfulness, sila. So these are the qualities that protect you, whether you're at home or in the forest. And you don't have to drive away spirits, but just establish mindfulness, but with a sense of compassion. You're not creating the causes for any being to harm you, whether it's an animal, a spirit, another human being. Of course, some people have karma, and sometimes things happen. Animals attack them, humans attack them, whatever. But generally speaking, if you don't have any strong karma, these good qualities that you bring up in your meditation and chanting will protect you. So chants that you've learned are the best because you can remember them, because maybe in the forest when the ghost comes, you haven't got time to get your chanting book out and is it page 17? What page is it? I've got to get. And meanwhile, the ghost is going, ugh. So learn a few chants off by heart. That's why I'm saying if you really haven't learned anything, just use Buddha. And Buddha can work. You can use that. And I know, as I said, I've known monks who ghosts have been coming and they see some dark figure and they use Buddha and they don't let their mind stray from Buddha. So the fear doesn't come in, the anxiety doesn't come in. It's just Buddha, 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 Buddha. And then what does a ghost do? A ghost goes away, doesn't it? It arises, passes away. It may be a nimitta, a vision or a feeling, a presence or an image. It just arises and passes away. And if you keep mindful, there's no problem, is there? So it could be a longer chant, a sutta, a paritta. The parittas are called protections for this very purpose. Or it could be just one word, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. They're all good.
Sadhu, Lumpur. Does anybody else have any further questions or comments? Lumpur, there are no further questions.
Okay, quite a long session tonight. So won't be seeing you for a couple of weeks, traveling in Thailand, but you'll see the advert when it comes up for the next Zoom session. We wish you all happy practicing in the new year, good health, and see you again next time.